think about it. Okay. So yeah, you're all very welcome. Before we go any further, I'm just going to open in prayer. Father God, we thank you for your amazing generosity to us, and we ask that you help us to respond to that, to give back to you. I thank you for each person who's here tonight, who's exploring those ways of responding to your generosity. And Lord, I just pray that as Jenny and Daniel speak to us this evening, that we'll all be equipped a little bit more with some of those mechanisms, some of those ways of enabling people to respond to you and give back to you. Lord, I just pray for your blessing on each person who's listening this evening, and your blessing on all that we learn this evening. In Jesus' name, amen. So yeah, so you're all very welcome. Just a few things to mention. If you haven't been in a webinar before, you can see us. We can't see you. Don't worry about that. You can only see the panelists who are presenting tonight. But if you want to ask any questions or interact with us in any way, we have the chat box that a few people are saying hello in the chat box. There's also a question and answer button, but you can ask questions in either place. Write your questions in the chat box if you like, or write them in the Q&A section if you want to. All the visuals that you see tonight, all the slides will be sent to you in an email afterwards. So don't worry about having to write everything down. You'll receive all of that later. The three of us that you can see on the screen, we're your generous giving advisors for the diocese. So we all pretty much do the same job, but we focus in different geographical areas of the diocese. So after today, if you want to know more, or if you'd like us to come and help you a little bit more, do give us a call, drop us an email, and we'd be very happy to come and chat with you in your church. I think that's everything. Oh, the other thing is we're not using the raise your hand button today because we can't see you. It's easier if you just write your comments and your questions directly into the chat box. Okay, so I'm going to pass straight over to Daniel, who's going to tell us a little bit more about contactless and online giving.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Christine. I'm just going to share my screen and I'll just double check. You can all see that okay? Christine and Jenny, that's coming through. Fantastic. So yes, as Christine said, hi, my name is Daniel. I'm one of the part-time generous giving advisors at the diocese. So before I start, I thought I'd give a little bit of a presentation outline. And essentially, on the journey to getting the most out of online and contactless giving, the first step for many of us will be finding out more about the options out there and then going through the process of signing ourselves up, our churches up for these services. We didn't want to skip this introductory part and presume that we had all done this. So I'll be covering these initial bases, thinking about online giving, contactless giving, and also giving via a QR code. So for all of these services, I'm going to be asking the questions, what are these services and what are the options out there? And then after that, Jenny's going to tell us a little bit more about how we can really get the most out of these, how we can communicate these to our congregations, where we can put QR codes and contactless donation machines, and just essentially make sure that, you know, we're not just buying these devices or signing up to these services and never giving people the opportunity to use them, but that we're actually being proactive about it. So starting first then of our three with online giving. And what is online giving? Well, I guess the first thing to recognize is that we live in an increasingly digital and internet active age. So we can see from the statistic there that there are 62 million monthly active internet users in the UK and 46.6 million people that use the internet every day. I guess alongside internet usage more generally, we might say that fundraising has evolved over the years. And whereas once it was primarily reliant on in-person donations, cash donations, or even mailed in checks and donations, it now focuses heavily on online giving because that's where people are at. That's the services they're using. So what exactly is online giving? Well, to put it simply, we might describe online giving as any method of donation that is facilitated by the internet via a website. This generally means that anyone with an internet connected device, like a phone or a tablet, can use the online giving platform to make a single or reoccurring donation. So all of you that have joined us today will have an internet connection to be doing so, which means that you are able in all your different contexts to use online giving if you would want to go and donate online if you've also got like an associated bank card. So I'm going to give a very practical example here, and at the same time use an opportunity to give a shout out to the Cornwall Independent Poverty Forum Christmas Giving Catalogue. If you've never heard of it before, the CIPF Christmas Giving Catalogue is a way by which you can donate to lots of individual projects and charities, information of which is available on the website cornwallindependentpovertyforum.com. And this year, although they have done it in previous years, but this year in a new way, they're taking donations for this service online. So when you look at the catalogue, you are directed to this payment page here. And as you can see, people select an amount, they choose the charity that they want to donate to, choose in what format they'd like their gift certificate printed, if at all, choose to gift aid it, and then press next, and then they'd get a payment gateway directly on the website itself to process the donation. This is a form of online giving. So now that we know a little bit about what online giving is, the next question we might be asking ourselves is, why does my church, why does my community group need online giving? And this list is huge, and I don't have the time tonight to go through every single reason, but I thought I'd try and give a couple, although this list is by no means exhaustive, and it may well be that there's a factor that you're thinking about that you think online giving might help with that I haven't mentioned tonight. I guess the first reason would be that we live in an increasingly cashless society, and this has been further exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Data shows that the number of payments using notes and coins fell by up to 35% in 2020. This means that there might be many situations when people genuinely want to donate to the church, but they find themselves unable to do so because they don't carry cash, and therefore it doesn't suit their lifestyle and their way of arranging their finances. During the COVID-19 pandemic, it was also literally impossible for many people to give by cash because our churches were, in majority of the pandemic, they were shut. I know that some people save paper envelopes quite dutifully, but in a lot of cases that income was just lost because people were unable to go to church and give by cash in the way that they were used to. This leads me on to the second point, which is that online giving means that a person can give any time of day or day of the week, and not just a Sunday morning. This means that if someone visits your church and it doesn't have cash on them, or in that particular moment they don't feel compelled to give, they might not do so. But actually, when they get home, they can look up your church online, find your online giving platform, and then donate. They can do so at a time which is convenient to them. And adding convenient ways of giving is hugely important when it comes to fundraising and generosity, because the easier you make it for people to live out their calling to generosity, the more likely it is they will do so. A third point about online giving is that it also widens your donation base, as anyone with access to the internet or your website can find your donation link and contribute to the life of the church. Perhaps those in your community that don't attend on a Sunday morning but have sympathy for the role of the parish might also be inclined to look up your church online and subsequently donate. There are so many other reasons why online giving might be beneficial to your church, and I could spend the whole hour just on this, meaning Jenny wouldn't get a chance to speak, but I won't do that. Essentially, online giving provides a 24/7, easy-to-use avenue for people to contribute to your church. It reduces the points of friction that make it difficult for people to give. And if nothing else, it provides one more avenue by which to facilitate the generosity of our congregations. I guess the next question then we might be asking ourselves, if we've been convinced that we might like to explore online giving, is what are the platforms and tools that I should be thinking about when it comes to generous giving? Online giving platforms have been in existence for over a decade now, and there are many operators offering a range of services. It's therefore important for churches to consider what their specific needs are and how they might best be met. One of the services that we often recommend, particularly because you can get preferential rates through parish buying, is a service called Give a Little. So Give a Little sets up a donation page for you, and you get a link, a little website link that you can put on your website, on your Church Near You page, or you can literally tell it to people, where they can select amounts to donate, and then the card processing is done by a company called SumUp. So you sign up for both those services at once, and you get a donation page, and you also get a service for processing the money directly into your bank account. If you sign up to Give a Little through parish buying, then you get a preferential fee of 1.95% per transaction. That's better than if you went directly to Give a Little. It works on multiple channels and devices, meaning people can use it on their laptops, they can use it on their phones, they can use it on tablets. And it can also record gift aid information if you get it through parish buying, as that's one of the premium features that gets given for free if you take advantage of that offer. So it's all very well finding out about it like this, but I thought it might also be helpful to have a look at a little clip of what it might actually look like for an end user to use Give a Little. So here I have a little video example from the Camborne cluster of churches. And as you can see here, we've got a little URL bar at the top there, which is the giving page for this particular church. And when someone loads that page on their laptop, this is what they see. They see 4 buttons for preset donation points, or you can choose your own amount. So if I just play the clip, I can see that in this example, I've chosen to donate £5. I then enter my name. In this case, I've used a made-up name. I enter my card number and the associated expiry dates and security codes. And then I would press the blue donate button. And just as easy as that, with literally almost 0 points of friction, I've been enabled to donate to the Camborne cluster. Another example of an online giving platform you might like to consider is Stewardship. Stewardship offers a very similar service, actually. Lots of these are very similar. They charge a 3.5% fee, but there is no associated monthly cost. One thing that you might like about Stewardship is that they provide instant gift aid. They provide it, they sort of claim it on behalf of you in the background, but that fund is available to you straight away. You can also create specific pages for projects, or you can have a generic funding page. So alongside my role for the diocese, I also do a little bit of work for a charity called Transformation Cornwall, and our online giving is handled through Stewardship. And here I have again a little clip of what the user process to donate looks like. So if someone wanted to give to Transformation Cornwall, they could click on the red button to give a one-off donation. That would then load the donation form where they would choose an amount. They would decide if they want to enter a message, if they want their details shared with the charity, or if they want it to be anonymous. And then certain information like email addresses and security checks are performed. They can choose to create an account or donate it as a guest, so you don't even need to create an account to donate. You put some information in, like your name and address. And then finally, once you've done that, and decided whether or not you want to claim gift aid, you get to the card page where, like Give a Little, you enter your card details and security codes, and then that donation is processed. So as you can see, even between these two examples, Give a Little collects less information than Stewardship. Give a Little literally just wants to know your name, your card number, and you donate, whereas Stewardship has the option of collecting more information like address and phone number, and creating an account if you wanted to donate to multiple projects through Stewardship. And so really, it's kind of up to you and the needs of the church as to what service suits better. A final thing I'll mention quickly today, although I won't spend too much time on it because we have a session next week, which is specifically about regular giving, is the parish giving scheme. But if you can't make it to that one, I thought it would be useful to note that the parish giving scheme is by far the best option for reoccurring donations / the equivalent of standing orders. So some of the benefits are that gift aid is automatically claimed for you. There's an option for the donor to commit to an inflationary increase in their donation baseline to the rate of inflation, meaning the value of donations stay the same. And there is no direct charge to parishes for using the parish giving scheme or processing the donation. They'll receive 100% of what the donor gives as the costs associated with the parish giving scheme are paid for by the diocese. And here I have just a little example of what a parish giving page looks like. In this case, an example for Redruth, St. Eunice's Church, a beautiful church in Redruth, and what their page looks like there. So as you can imagine, there are lots of services available when it comes to online giving, and those two were just two examples. There are probably dozens and dozens out there, including some such as DonorBox, Easy Fundraising, Just Giving, ChurchSuite, CAF Donate, and Wonderful. I list these not to scare people to think, oh my goodness, do I need to pick the right one? But just to say that, you know, if you are thinking about this, please do get in contact with us because we can give you a call or we can meet for coffee. We can think about the needs for your church. You know, what is it that you want to get out of online giving? And then on the basis of that, help you select a appropriate donation tool. But again, as I mentioned at the beginning, one of the ones that we tend to champion just for pure ease of usability and also because you can get preferential rates through parish buying is Give a Little. And that was the example I showed there using the Camborne cluster. Very briefly then, I thought it would also be worth talking about QR codes and what QR codes are and how they can enable online giving for your church. So QR codes are a type of barcode easily scanned by most smartphone cameras that can be linked to online giving platforms. Lots of us will be used to QR codes now from the days of track and trace when we had to scan them at restaurants and coffee shops. But I guess alongside that public health use, they also have a very useful feature for churches. And the fact that so many people have been using them for the purpose of track and trace means that lots of people are now familiar with them and know how to load them on their phones. So on the right there, I've got an example of a QR code, and I'm actually just going to load up my phone camera and give that a scan there. And just like that, that's opened up for me the page that I was showing earlier, which is the Give a Little donation page for the Camborne cluster. So on the basis of scanning that, I can now select a donation amount, and directly from my phone, I would be able to make a donation. Other uses for these might be to print them and place them around your church building so that people can scan them and donate. You could print them on little cards, sort of business card style, and hand them out to people. You could put them on your website. You could share them on social media. If you're live streaming your Sunday services, you could put the QR code in the top right-hand corner of the video. I've seen that done before. Jenny will also be talking to us a little bit about how we might make most use of these kind of things in our churches. The other thing to mention is that most online giving providers offer a free facility to create QR codes. So Give a Little, the parish giving scheme, etc. They will automatically generate these QR codes for you. So you can just download them and print them or put them on your social media, etc. Moving on then to contactless giving and why might our church need it? So what is contactless giving? Well, contactless giving relates to those little devices that people tap with their debit or credit card, or even insert the card into actually, by means of a wireless network. So they're connected to the internet sometimes, or not even connected to the internet, as we'll see. And that allows people to collect donations. You might have seen these if you've been to museums or even some churches, actually. They have little card machines up where people can just tap and easily give a donation. Reasons for contactless giving are very similar to reasons for online giving. As we're carrying less and less cash, it means that people that come into our churches might like to give on a Sunday morning, but they might not have the facilities on them. But most people do still carry their cards, and they could easily, take it out and tap it and make a donation. If you have a church with high footfall, it might also be the case that your visitors, likewise, have appreciated visiting the building, and on their way out, they might like to tap your contactless card machine. Some contactless card machines can be left unattended throughout the week, which, as I said, means that footfall can donate. And of course, because of the pandemic, we've been encouraged to use contactless more and more to sort of avoid that that transaction of cash, that touching of things. So again, it means that people are more used to this way of paying for services and also donating. So as with online giving, there are so many options available out there. And I think the best way to look at this really is as an introduction to these. And if you want more information, contact one of your generous giving advisors and we'll meet up with you and think about questions like, is there internet in the church? Or is there mobile signal? Do we need to leave it unattended? And on the basis of that, recommend a device. But I guess I just wanted to go through three options today, a budget option, a sort of mid-range option, and a slightly more expensive option, to show that really there are options at every end of the price scale, and that it's not quite as intimidating as it might seem. So a budget option here might be to buy something called a SumUp card reader, which is that little white thing there, and then a tablet, just any Android tablet, and link the two together via Bluetooth, and then use the specifically developed app by Give a Little to load that nice looking screen that you can see there. That would allow you to connect the tablet to the device and collect donations like that. If you buy a contactless card SumUp reader through Parish Buying, you can get it for as little as £19. And there are tablets, Android tablets out there, such as the Kindle Fire tablet, which are also as little as £50. So for £69, you're up and running, really. A budget option. Fees for this kind of setup would be 1.1% for debit cards and 1.3% for credit cards. It would require internet unless you buy a tablet that has a sort of built-in mobile signal. But we probably wouldn't recommend that you leave this setup unattended, precisely because, as we'll see in a couple of photos, it's not secured to anything. So it's probably not the best idea. But this little diagram here really just quickly illustrates what that process looks like. You've got the tablet loaded with the Give a Little app. That connects to the contactless card machine, the SumUp contactless card machine. People select an amount, they tap their card, and then the donation is processed. So what might that look like in practice? Well, we have a photo here of a setup just like that. So here we have just an Android tablet. It's a generic Samsung tablet that's been loaded up with the Give a Little page. It's been set on a little wooden stand. I believe that's from IKEA. I think they cost £12. And then they just have the little SumUp card device there that they've purchased from Parish Buying for £19. And that's connected to the internet. And that's just left there for people to collect donations. As you can see, though, this kind of setup is probably quite easy to steal as it's not fixed to anything. So it's probably only really recommended that it's left out like that, if there's someone in the church, which there is, as we can see in the back there. But for £79 and no monthly cost, other than the associated fees for processing the payments, your church could be up and going with a contactless donation point. A mid-range option might be something such as the Good Box Mini. So this device here, you can see it on the right, costs £155 for a total unit price. That includes the donation point and the stand. And this one has a monthly fee associated with it of £12.50. But it also has, a 1.5% flat fee associated to each donation. The advantage to this setup is that it looks a little bit more professional. It's a little bit less DIY, and it can also be left unattended because for £15, you can buy an associated security pack, which helps you permanently fix that point to a table or a stand or something like that, and means it's less likely to be taken. A good thing about the Good Box Mini is that where there is no internet, so if your church doesn't have internet, donations can be tapped and stored on the device. And then what would happen is that once a week, a treasurer or a volunteer would unlock the device, take it home where it would connect to the Wi-Fi, and then all those transactions would sync up for the past week, meaning it's possible to use this device even in churches with no mobile signal or Wi-Fi, just as long as there's someone who's willing to take the device home at regular intervals, or indeed anywhere that has a Wi-Fi connection, just to give the device an opportunity to sync up. And then, of course, as with everything in life, there are also premium options available. And this WD MIDI device, it's called, might be an example of a premium option. So this costs £699, excluding VAT. That's a preferential rate through parish buying. Again, there's a similar monthly standard service charge and a slightly higher, actually, transaction fee of 2.95%. The advantages to a device like this is that it's really intended for unattended use and comes with associated safety features to sort of attach it permanently to a wall or a table, etc. And again, it has a slightly more premium look. So you'll find that places like the Tate Gallery and museums in London use this kind of device purely because it has that aesthetic function alongside the practical safety function. So here is an example of a church that is indeed using that device. As you can see, they have permanently and securely fixed it to this table here, meaning, I guess if you wanted to steal it, you'd need to crack through the plastic, and then you'd need to sort of take the whole table with you, which is probably quite unlikely. But it does have a sort of more polished feel to it. It looks quite professional. So when it comes to considering options, again, as I said, the best thing to do really, if you're a little bit flabbergasted by everything I've just said, is to have a conversation with us, because, you know, if you tell us what you're looking for, what your budget is, whether you want to leave it unattended or not, on the basis of that, we'll be able to give you some bespoke support. Considering options, one of our colleagues in another diocese put together this very helpful chart, which basically has taken a whole bunch of providers, such as SumUp, Goodbox, Pay a Charity, etc. And it's given an indicative hardware cost and then a standing charge. So this very top one here, the SumUp/Give-A-Little, that would be kind of similar to the setup I suggested at the beginning, which is where you buy the cheap device, the Android tablet, and the contactless device. And once you've paid for the hardware cost, there's no standing charge to that. There's just the processing fee. We've also got the Goodbox Mini there, which is the second device that I showed. So it has a hardware cost and then a little bit of an associated standing charge. And then right at the bottom there, we can see for $699 that GW Mini, which was the third premium device, which has a significantly higher outlay and also a standing charge. But as you can see, there are options all the way down the spectrum, I guess relating to how much you want to spend, how much certain features are important to you. But again, I think it's important to note, there are options at every budget point. A similar chart that our colleague put together for us, which is really helpful, is what is your take-home donation based on the processing fees for all these different services. So as you can see, again, our top budget option, because there's no standing charge or anything like that, and the processing fee is just what SumUp charge, you actually take home quite a lot of it. Goodbox has quite a high processing fee relative to some of the other ones, and interestingly, yeah, as I said, the sort of premium GWD devices have a really high, circa plus 2% processing charge, meaning you take home slightly less. And of course, there are a whole bunch of options in between. So if we were to get in contact with us, what we would do is we would think about, you know, what is your budget for an initial outlay? What is your budget for ongoing costs? You know, do you want a service that has a sort of monthly standing charge, or do you just want a one and done sort of thing? And then what is your sort of tolerance for processing costs? What's going to be the best option for you? And of course, other questions such as internet connectivity, whether you want to leave it unattended. But once we've had these conversations, it's quite easy really to point you in the right direction. And as Jenny's going to be sharing briefly, I think I've gone on slightly too long, is, you know, we'll also help you in getting the most out of these devices, helping you place them in a convenient place in the church, helping you set them up, etc. You're really not in the dark when it comes to this. We're very much here to help you. And that's the end of my very whistle-stop tour of online giving, QR codes, and contactless giving. I do apologize if that was a sort of a bombardment of information, but as I said, please do send an email and we'd be more than happy to meet up with you and chat about your bespoke situations.
Thank you very much, Daniel. That was a really helpful presentation. I have got a few questions that have come in here. If anyone else has a question for Daniel at this point, please write it down. We'll start answering these ones that have come in, but please, if you've got a question, we'll have a look at those before we pass over to Jenny. So the first question I have here is, we don't have a website. Does that mean we can't do these things? I think that came in when you were talking about the online giving.
Yeah. And the answer to that would be no, you don't need a website to do these things. So one of the benefits of something like Give a Little is that link, that page would exist on its own, and you'd be able to give people just that. And also, in addition to that, every church, if it's a Church of England church, whether they know it or not, has something called a Church Near You page, which is kind of like a directory page set up centrally, which you can request to edit. Which is also a good idea to do, actually, because you can add some basic details such as service times and contact details for church wardens and things like that. You can also put the link on there, meaning that if you don't have a website, when people Google you, the first thing that's probably going to come up is that a Church Near You page. And if you put the donation link on there, they'll be able to go through that.
Thank you. Another question, would the devices work on 4G?
Yeah, so it will be device specific. So there are some devices where you can plug in a literal like phone SIM card, and that's how they work. That's how they get their internet. There are other devices which work via Wi-Fi only. And then, of course, there is also the third option, which I know some churches in Carlisle have taken, which is where they buy a little, if the church doesn't have Wi-Fi, as a good opportunity to get internet in, what they do is they buy a little box that you put a phone SIM card into, a 4G SIM card into, and then that little box broadcasts a Wi-Fi signal just where it is. And most of these devices with Wi-Fi would then be able to use that signal. In fact, right now I'm joining this call. The internet, the Wi-Fi is out in my house, so I have a little 4G box that I've just stuck on top of my cupboard because that's where I get the best signal. And that box is broadcasting Wi-Fi, which I've connected to on my laptop, and that's how I'm joining you today.
Thank you very much. I think that's all the questions we've got for the moment. Has anyone else got another question before we move on to Jenny? I don't think so. So if you do have another question for Daniel that pops into your head whilst Jenny's talking, please continue to bring your questions and any questions for Jenny as well. But I'm going to pass over to Jenny now.
Thanks, Daniel. That was some brilliant information there. I was listening to it as well with the eagerness, learning new things as well. So thank you. I'm just going to, I'm not going to do that. Sorry. What am I doing? I'm just trying to share my screen. And I don't know. I'm sorry. I can't get it to do what I want it to do. There we go. Okay, so continuing on from that, you can have the machine in your church, the mechanism to give or signing up for online, but I'm afraid the bad news about that is that it doesn't automatically mean that people are going to give to you. Because if it was that simple, we'd just all go and buy one and go and put our feet up and go home, and it'd be fine. And so I'm just going to bring 3 C's to success, or at least to a greater degree of success or efficiency than if you do nothing at all. And those are going to be contextualize, communicate, and consistency. And for each one of those, I'm going to focus on an often heard statement or phrase that we get coming back to us quite a lot from a variety of different churches. I'm going to pick up on those phrases as we go by and help you to overcome some of those things. So in 2020, the Anglican Giving Survey was produced, and the results have just been published now. And recommendations were made as a result of that survey. And one of the top 10 recommendations was this: ensure that your church has the means for people to give digitally, which we've just been looking at, and promote them. Now, it's interesting because in chemistry terms, a promoter is a substance that increases the efficiency of something. And that's what we want to do. We want to help you increase the efficiency of the devices that you have, or the online giving platforms that you have in your churches. So what do I mean by contextualize? I mean putting the mechanism into the context of the bigger church picture. And you may have heard us talk about mint and idea: mechanism, impact, need, trust, and then inspire, disciple, embed, and activate, because the mechanisms fit into something a little bit bigger than just, this is a machine people are going to give. And one of the things we hear quite often is this, and let me just say, if you've said any of these things to me in the last few weeks, I'm not picking on you, really I'm not. It's just that we get these time and time again, and we all hear them. And one of them is this: we put up posters about it, we've got our display, but nobody's done anything, nobody responded. And so I'm going to ask a couple of questions if that's your situation. You've already done something like that. You've already printed out a QR code and nothing has happened. So my questions are these: how are people being asked to give? Why are they being asked to give? And thirdly, are you explaining really clearly how they can do their giving? So if we begin at the beginning, let me ask you a question. Why do you want people to come into your churches? Let's just think about visitors at the moment. Do you want them to come in, A, so that they can give you money, or B, so that they can be blessed by being there, sense something of the love of God, maybe become a part of your local church community? Which one is that? Is that A or B? And I reckon and hope and pretty assured that most of you are going to say B. Of course, we want people to come in because we want them to feel welcome. We want them to feel the love of God. We want to encourage them to be with us. We want to bless them by coming into our church building and into our services. And the thing is, that's what we need to do first of all, because people give to what they love and to what they feel a connection with. And you could put up a little post like this: welcome. We don't receive money for this church from any central funds. We need your help. Please consider making a donation. Well, Bishop Hugh has been speaking this week at the Bishop Study Day about being real. Well, this is real and honest, but it's not really very welcoming, apart from the actual word welcome. It's really asking people to give you something, when actually when people come into our church buildings, what we want to do is to give them this huge welcome, as though we're enveloping them with the love of God. So we want to be giving them something first. And you in your churches, you've got so much to offer. There's that beauty of the actual building, that hope, the peace, the comfort, and not least of all, the presence of God. And so maybe something, I'm afraid the wording on the bottom isn't too clear, but something like this: welcome to this quiet sanctuary. Please take a free prayer card or scripture. If you'd like someone to pray with or for you, then fill out the card and drop it into the box. And then just this small bit at the bottom about the building or the church being, the cost of it being substantial, but thank you for those who are actually have contributed to it. And if you want to do the same and you've enjoyed your visit, then look for our giving station. See, there's the details in there, but the overriding impression is one of welcome. And if you think, oh, well, we can't produce anything like that, can I just say that that didn't take me all day. That took me 10 minutes on a wonderful site called Canva, which you can sign up for. It's a free site. You can produce your poster like that, put your church details on it. You could pop your QR, well, you don't need your QR code on there, just leave it as a welcome. But you're showing people that they can give later on, but really we want them to get the welcome first of all. And somebody, if you think, well, we don't want to go, we don't want anything so elaborate. Somebody I know in this session tonight may recognize this next one that I've just seen today. Welcome to our church. In this beautiful church, people have worshipped God for hundreds of years. Take a moment. It's all about you welcoming people in first of all, and then it goes on to say, you know, the cost is borne. If you can support us, if you'd like to, we really appreciate it. Thank you very much. So we're getting the message across rather than just saying, give us your money now. And then we've always got to keep it in the sense of impact and need. Why are people being asked to give? And are you explaining how they can give in a clear way? And so this is about every time you make the ask, every time, whether that's on your website and on a church near you page, whether that's on a poster, whether that's on a printed piece, postcard or something of that nature. Every time you ask, really make sure people know the impact and the need of their giving. And it could be something as simple as this, the QR code with St. Mary's is delighted to be supporting its community by food aid, care and share and little tackers. If you'd like us to help us in helping them, scan the QR code to find out more. And this is, it's engaging people. It's not saying we want your money. It's saying, do you want to invest in a good cause? Do you want to invest in the community, in the young children, in those who are needy? And it makes a big difference to putting just those few extra little things on than to just popping something like this, donate here to help support our church. That's true, that's where they can do it, but it doesn't really tell us much about why you're asking people to give. So whether you've got a QR code or whether you've got a contactless device, make sure you really share that impact and need. I mentioned the Anglican giving scheme at the Anglican Giving Survey, sorry, at the beginning. And another one of the 10 recommendations just published says this: encourage giving to the church as a way of maintaining the church building for current and future generations. And the reason for that is that the most popular reason given by Anglicans as to why they give to their church is to help keep the building maintained. And also those outside of the actual body of Christ, outside of that church community, in your wider community, a large percentage of those are heritage givers. And so you can go from making this ask at your contactless device to adding a few things which will incorporate that recommendation into it. So we go from follow the instructions below, and of course your instructions have to be nice and clear, to adding a couple of bits in. First thing that we add in is what Mummy told me to always say wherever I went, which is please and thank you. And then we have that it will help preserve this church for future generations and support the local community. So we're always telling people what their donation is going to point to, what it's going to end up as. And again, we've taken some slides from our colleagues in another diocese. We appreciate that. But I have seen a very similar giving station even today when I was out and about. And it's really good to have a set place where people can come and do their giving, rather than have like 12 different places around the church. Have one place, maybe at the exit where everybody will pass by. You might want to have takeaway leaflets on there. You might have your device on there, maybe a QR poster next to it, and that very simple invitation to give. And what you'll notice here is everything is very clear and clean and tidy. And that's really important, because it looks like donors are you're going to take care of whatever donors give you. It might be a real difficulty for you to get the whole of your church building absolutely spotless, but you can really keep that area clean so that people have a great impression of how you take care of things. And people make judgment on that. You might think, oh, well, nobody's going to worry too much, but people psychologically, they do make those judgments before they give. It's not just about, are you a good cause? It's, are you good soil to sow their money into, their gifts into? Are you going to take care of what you're given? I'll take you back to this setup that Daniel showed you, so I won't go through it too much, but do you see how it's all very clear and clean and plain? A QR code, a simple invitation to give. I see some gift aid envelopes down here. If people still want to use cash or donate in a different way. So it's not a jumble, there's not loads of leaflets. People can see it and access it very easily. Again, this is one in one of the churches in the diocese. They've got some instructions here. Actually, on the right-hand side, there's some other instructions in larger print for people to do that. It's just the machine. There's an invitation to give as well. And we're going to have a look at coming on to that communicating. The second thing that we hear quite a lot is this: we set it up, but only 2 people have given. You can't expect donors to stumble across it. You have to lead them to it. Even if you've got a contactless device in your church or a giving station at the end, you can't expect new visitors or even your congregation to remember to go to it, or you have to introduce it to them in the first place. So every time you make the ask, if you do that at the front of your church, if you say, we are grateful for the donations, we thank you for what you've given during the week. However you do that, make sure that people still understand that need for them to give, the impact for them to give, but also how they can do it. Do people know it's there? So for that actual device in your church, has anyone actually seen it? Is it, somebody said to me, oh, we have got one. I think it's in a cupboard somewhere. Well, it's not doing very much good in a cupboard, but make sure it's there and it's out on display. Are there links to your giving page in your literature, on your website, on a church near you, on the Facebook page? And are those links very clear? Do you know that you can actually change what it says on the link? So sometimes when you click on a link or you share a link, it will come up with like a jumble of numbers, or it won't look very good. You can actually click on that and you can change it to say, give here, or donate now, or whatever you'd like it to say. And so that leads people to actually being very clear for people on certain pages. And as Daniel mentioned there, you and the question came, we often sort of, don't use, I think, a church near you as well as we could, because it is that first thing that comes up. It's really important just to make the most of that. That is, I know that it's a page, but it's like it can be like a website for you if you haven't got your own. It's really a very good instrument to have, very good thing to have there. And then number 2, is your whole congregation familiar with it? Because we've talked about visitors, we've talked about other people giving, but the first people that need to know about your mechanisms in the church are your day-to-day, your Sunday to Sunday, week to week congregants, your laity, those people who come. why do I say that? It's because they're your biggest advocates for it. And it's really good that you communicate that with them first and equip them so that they can lead other people to it. There's a huge difference between someone coming in, for example, and saying, oh, well, how do you give in this church? And someone saying, well, I don't know, I use the parish giving scheme. Well, I think there's some device somewhere, but I don't know anything about it. That doesn't give a very good impression. So really equip your congregation. Maybe I know one of the churches had let's try it out day, the day that it was put into the church, so that people could come and just test it out and see how it worked. And or you could get a champion, you might not know how to use it, but Lydia and Bill, they'll be here, just point people in their direction. We don't expect everyone in your congregation to know all about it, but make sure they can point someone in the right direction. And then the last thing I'm going to just talk about for a few minutes is that consistency. And one of the phrases, again, that comes up is this: we would do it if our church was bigger. There's no point in us putting a poster up. There's no point in us telling people properly about it, because there's only a few. I'm sure they know about it. Or we're only a rural community. We don't have many people coming in. The church is open, but I'm sure, maybe not many people come and see it. So what's the point? And the scripture says this. You knew I'd come to scripture, didn't you? You know I'd get that in there. So Luke 16:10 says this: he who is faithful in the least is faithful with much. Would you act any differently or provide any other options and informations if you had a bigger church? And if the answer to that is yes, or if you had a bigger community. So if the answer to that is yes, I'm going to ask you to think on that again, because visitors and congregants alike should be entitled to the same benefits and the same opportunities, whether their community is large or small. And really you're making a judgment. And I'd say, don't make a judgment on who can give and if someone can give. Allow God to work. He can move on people's hearts, whatever the size of your church, however remote you are. Because if you can believe, and I know you do, that Jesus was crucified and God raised him from the dead, then you can believe that a stranger can walk into your church in the middle of nowhere, see a sign, and God move on their heart to give something. And now if we can believe the one thing, we can surely believe the other one. And some people will be giving beyond their capacity, just as Paul talked about with the Macedonian church. Because the same God who inhabits heaven is present himself in the same way with you. You're not a tiny church, so it doesn't matter, we're only a tiny church. You're a tiny part of God's bigger body, aren't you? So don't think of yourselves as small. Do as you would if you were in a bigger place. And so what we've said today, it's not about making you all the same. It's not about saying, right, you all have to have this, you all have to have that. The reason behind it is giving every community the same opportunity to give out and to receive back in. I'm going to stop my sharing now. You're on mute, Christine, a minute.
Thank you. Yeah, I just said thank you very much, Jenny. That was really helpful, really useful presentation. We've just got a few more minutes. If anyone has any more questions, please bring your questions. I've got one here that has come in, probably for Daniel, I guess, this one. Can you differentiate between income streams, i.e. separate general donations from card sales?
That's a good question, and the answer is both yes and no, depending on which device you go for. So some of the devices, I know that the sum up one, for example, you can also use the station as like a payment device. So you could use it at your coffee mornings, etc., and you could differentiate those payment streams, so you don't accidentally claim, file it incorrectly. But there are some devices, such as the good box devices, which are donation only. So you can't use those for taking payment. But again, if you wanted to chat more, and we sort of would go through like a quick questionnaire almost of questions, we could work out which devices would and wouldn't suit, depending on your need. But if that was one of the things you need, but there are some devices out there that can do that, absolutely.
And also to add to that, with the online giving as well, you can separate different streams. You can set up what they call different campaigns, so that you've got income for maybe a project, income for general donations with the online, with the Give a Little and other online platforms. Another question, how essential is Wi-Fi to all these schemes?
Yeah, so I guess Wi-Fi would come up most often in the context of the contactless devices. And the answer is it's helpful because lots of devices work with internet, but it's not essential. So there are two things that you can do here, really. Some of the devices, you'll plug a phone SIM card into it, like you would a mobile phone, and then it will just use that to process everything. So as long as you have a phone signal where you're putting the device or using it, you're good to go. Or failing that, if there's no Wi-Fi and there's no phone signal, you can also get a type of device. What happens is it works offline, basically. You need absolutely no signal. And then someone, a volunteer or a treasurer, etc., just needs to take that device somewhere with internet. So you could take it to the library, you could take it home, and then when it connects to the internet, it'll process everything and all those transactions will go through. And it can store those transactions. Well, it can actually store them indefinitely, but it's not recommended to do it for longer than a month, because if not, that might confuse people. Because if someone donates and then the money doesn't leave their account till 3 months later, they might be a bit confused. But in principle, as long as you have someone that's willing to take the device at regular intervals somewhere with internet, it's not an impediment at all.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think the only other question was to repeat our contact details. I have put our email addresses in the chat there, but after this, I'll also be sending out an email to everybody, so our contact details will be on there as well. Yeah, so hopefully you've all found that really helpful. I don't think there's any more questions, but as Jenny and Daniel have both said, do give us a call if you want to talk through any of these issues. We're more than happy to come out to any of your churches. In the follow-up email, I'll also let you know which deaneries each of us focus on, so you know specifically the best person to contact. You can contact any of us, but there is a best person for your geographical area. So I will let you know that in the email. But yeah, I hope you found it helpful, and I wish you all the best in following this up, in getting set up with contactless giving and online giving. So it's exactly 8 o'clock, so we'll say goodbye and God bless you all.
And good night, everyone. Bye.
Bye.